Penning.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I refer the House to my register of interests as well. I would look at new clause 1, and I don't think there's any argument that historically we need to look at the leaseholds. But in my own constituency, Madam Deputy Speaker, where I've got lots of new build going on, regeneration going on, and a lot of leasehold properties being built, I'm not convinced personally that with the investment that I'm seeing in my constituency at the moment would come forward if the developers didn't see where that income stream would come from going forward. And that includes pensions. And I know there's lots of evidence going back and forth, but it's an area where just that point I disagree on. The historic leaseholder issue I completely agree with, and the myriad of different leases that are out there and have been out there for many, many years is where the real problem is. And I find it astonishing that lawyers were doing some of the things, and I've read the Select Committee report that the chairman of the committee was referring to a minute ago, and it fascinates me how they ever got insured and how they've not been struck off. And I know there's other investigations going on at the moment. But it's not just around ground rent, Madam Deputy Speaker. It's about service charges. And a particular area which I'm really, really upset about, and I think we need to do something about it in this House, whether we do it in this bill or we do it in another place, is the area around buildings insurance. Now, I own a freehold property with a mortgage, and I have contents and buildings insurance. And in my buildings insurance, I have legal protection. The sort of protection we would expect our constituents to benefit from when you pay buildings insurance. But if you have a leasehold, you have to pay buildings insurance to the freeholder or their management company. You have no choice whatsoever as to that company, what the premium is, how much the premium is, and what sort of coverage. And when a claim is made, and I use an example in my own constituency where we had a large sinkhole situation in a housing development where there were leaseholders, I sat in a meeting with the insurance representative, the freeholder, and my leaseholder constituents, and the insurance company said to me, absolutely deadpan straight to me, your constituents may well have paid the premium, but the policy is not theirs. They have no cover whatsoever. The cover is for the freeholder. And there has to be something morally wrong about that. And insurance has developed over the years where it used to cover very few things. But these days, nearly all buildings insurance, worth its salt, has legal protection. And it's what it says on the tin. So how can it be right? And this bill doesn't cover that in the way that I think it could do. And sometimes that's wrapped into the service charges and wrapped into everything else. And the ground rent is part of that package. But at the same time, where we've got houses with historical freeholds, and some of them from the old military estates, Madam Deputy Speaker, where people have bought properties on what used to be the MOD property, and they are paying leasehold rents on what everybody assumed was a freehold property. That can't. There's something structurally wrong. So I say to the Minister, as I alluded to earlier on, to do looking back rather than forward. Looking forward is fantastic. We need some dates and we need some targets that our constituents can look forward to. But ruling out looking back just because it's difficult, as I said on the building safety bill in this House only last week, looking back because it's difficult is what this House is supposed to do. It would be more difficult to look back and bring those leaseholders, our constituents, that I feel left out from this legislation and very vulnerable still, as my friend from Warrington has already said. But it can be done. It's not a case of it's impossible, because we're retrospectively doing it in the building safety bill. And we're going back 30 odd years on the building safety, retrospectively. So I say to the Minister, I wonder if he could explain, and this speaks to us when he sums up on new clause 1, why the government feel that is so difficult when we're actually doing it on a separate piece of legislation that's going through the House today.